Ladies and gentlemen, nice to see you. Welcome to the launch event for this Epstaxis National Audit Management. My name is Rich Williams. I lead the steering committee of these noble people, and we'll tell you a lot about the event, and hopefully this should be a nuts and bolts guide on how to process information and be involved. I'm going to talk to you about the background, very briefly a bit about Integrate. So, collaborative research is a huge opportunity for all of us as trainees, but also as a specialty to collect data on a larger scale than would otherwise be achievable. It's not a new thing, it's occurring in lots of different specialties other than our own, and we're a bit lagging behind. So Integrate is trying to stem that gap. What we're trying to do is work on an annual project, and a little advertisement for that is that actually that will be a competitive process from this point onwards. So in April we will be looking to find a project to badge as the Integrate project, where the study designers maintain authorship rights, but we help them collect the data and process their data collection and go from there. We also look to support collaborative research in all the different deaneries. You know, people are doing great stuff and not everything needs to be Integrate, but we like to help as much as we can with that process. The Integrate committee are these lovely looking fellas. We've lost one of them already because he's a consultant now, that's Paul Mankfield, but the rest of us are still ongoing. We will be looking to recruit at least one member in December to replace Paul and keep the project going. Coming to nosebleeds, Claire Hopkins dropped us an email in May of 2015, which is not a very long time ago. It was quite low-key, saying that things had been discussed about getting a national audit of Epstaxis going, and they worked within the BRS and CAPAG and ENT UK ideas of how that would happen. And actually, these things aren't really feasible at that level, and they came to us as the trainees to decide whether we could potentially come up with a plan on how this would be done. So we went back to them and asked them about, well, what's the gold standard if you want an audit? And actually, there is no gold standard, or there was no gold standard for the management of Epstaxis. There are some reasonable systematic reviews already available, but they're back in 2011. They're not as into the detail as perhaps needs to be to give us the clarity that we desire, and so work needs to be done. There are some best practice advice. A lot of them are based on primary care advice. Again, they're not systematic reviews, and they're not sort of properly formulated recommendations, more opinion-based. So this represented an opportunity for us to do something at the start of this project, which was form that evidence base. So Kishan will know that we engaged in a lot of systematic reviews. So Epstaxis management was broken down into a number of domains. And each of those domains created systematic reviews to look at the evidence base in the various areas of Epstaxis management. We had the support of two university librarians in Cambridge and Exeter who worked developing the search criteria and finding the papers associated with these searches. And then our fantastic systematic reviewers painstakingly went through all of these papers. As anybody who's done systematic reviews will know, it's not an easy process. And filled in these data extraction forms, which looked at the various areas of the paper, but not only that, assessed them for bias. So we were not only looking at what's out there, but what is the quality of the evidence that was there. Then it went to a consensus process. So we had an event in May up in Leeds just before the BRS National Conference, where a group of experts of varying fields sat down and listened to presentations about these systematic reviews and then made recommendation guidelines on those findings. These are the people, and you can see that we have representation from ENT, but also the allied specialties, haematology, radiology, etc., and some patients in there as well to give the colour that we required. Making recommendations is actually quite a complex process, but something that's happened in many different areas before. There's something called grades criteria, which is interesting because Cochrane systematic review is very useful, but at the end they often say, well, the data is insufficient to suggest what needs to be done and more research needs to be conducted. And whereas that is helpful to a point, it leaves us in a difficult situation clinically knowing what to do. Grade criteria is a bit more pragmatic in that it looks at the data that's presented but also the question that's out there. And if you have strong data suggesting a method or a process that you should be following, then you follow the data. If the data is weak but the benefits are perceived to be strong and the risks associated were low, you can still offer a strong recommendation despite weak evidence. And perhaps unsurprisingly with Epstaxis, a lot of the data we found, a lot of the evidence is of quite low quality, and so we did have to work through it with a strong dose of pragmatism. We're not going to go through all the consensus findings today, and there's a very, very good reason for that. This first cycle of the audit is to find a baseline. We're not here with a stick to batter the units to say you're not doing this, you're not doing that, because at the moment the guidelines aren't formed and we need to know what's happening at that moment. The pilot suggested, and we'll talk about this later, that there is a large variation in management. Okay, so who are we to say at this stage how we should be doing it? We can only tell you what the evidence is. But just to put you into the picture, on one of the domains, this is initial assessment. The strong recommendations are about using an ABC approach, something that isn't based strongly in the evidence but seems very sensible, and the risks associated are obviously very low. And also looking at the key patient factors that affect the outcome of Epstaxis patients, of which there is reasonable data to go for. Weak recommendations are lower. And the reason to show you this also is that there is a very close alignment between the findings of the consensus process with the data collection tool. So when you go through the data collection tool and think, why are they asking that? Why are they asking this? The reason for that is that it is based upon this, and hence that we can say that this is auditable standards rather than just the feelings of a small group of people. That's all I've got for you about the background of the process and the consensus. Have we got any questions on that? Excellent. Good.